Welcome to the presentation on photosynthesis and cell respiration, how they form a cycle of energy. Energy flowing in from the sun, working its way through the ecosystem, and eventually drifting off into space as waste heat. Green plants, a little overview from photosynthesis. Green plants use a pigment called chlorophyll to convert energy from sunlight into chemical energy. Chlorophyll is contained in the thylakoid membranes inside the chloroplasts. It's what makes plants green. Basically, this process makes food out of energy which can be used by the plant or consumed by other creatures if they eat the plant. Carbon dioxide is a reactant of photosynthesis, while oxygen is a byproduct of photosynthesis. Carbon dioxide and water and energy from the sun gives you oxygen and sugar. Plants, photosynthetic bacteria and algae are producers in ecosystems. It's just a picture of the sunlight coming down, carbon dioxide and water going to the leaves, and sunlight, and carbohydrates are formed, sugars, glucose, and oxygen is released. So the reactants are carbon dioxide and water. You add energy from the sun, and the products are glucose and oxygen. The reactants are written on the left side of the arrow, and the products are written on the right side. So the equation for photosynthesis is carbon dioxide plus water plus sunlight gives you glucose and oxygen. Carbon dioxide, CO2, plus water, H2O, and sunlight gives you a sugar, generally glucose, C6H12O6, plus oxygen. Remember each side of that arrow, products and reactants. See the exact opposite in cellular respiration. Cell respiration is the release of energy derived from glucose created by photosynthesis. It occurs all the times in living cells, both plant and animal. A couple different kinds. Generally, we consider the most common aerobic with oxygen. There is some anaerobic without oxygen present. It's called fermentation. The key to remember is cell respiration occurs in both plants and animals. Plants have cell respiration as well. They have mitochondria, they have chemical reactions of life, they need energy. It's just fortunate for the animals that plants generally produce more energy than they need. They store it, and then if animals come by, they can eat those plants and get that energy for themselves. Cellular respiration, glucose plus oxygen, which were the products before, are now the reactants, give you carbon dioxide plus water plus energy, ATP. So we've got C6H12O6 plus O2 gives you carbon dioxide, CO2, and water, and ATP. It's the complete opposite of photosynthesis, the exact opposite. The only difference is the energy in this case is ATP going out to the chemical reactions of life. Input energy is sunlight. Cell respiration photosynthesis forms a continuous cycle in all ecosystems because the reactants of one process are the products of the other. Here's a little graphic example. Sunlight comes in, chloroplast, photosynthesis occurs, out goes oxygen and glucose in the mitochondria of every living organism, eukaryotic organism. There's mitochondria, cellular respiration takes place, glucose and oxygen in, and ultimately ATP, which will ultimately end up as heat after it does the chemical reactions of life. Everything ends up as waste heat, and the products of this are CO2 and H2O, carbon dioxide and water, which will be going back up at some point to another chloroplast, and added with sunlight will create carbon dioxide and water. Photosynthesis, cell respiration cycle. Carbon dioxide and water into chloroplasts, glucose and oxygen out, glucose and oxygen into a mitochondria, carbon dioxide and water come back out. The creation, sunlight energy in, which was very abundant, And ATP, the energy of life out of cellular respiration, when it does its job and facilitates the chemical reactions of life, the end result of that is heat. Just like if you go for a run, you heat up, you're using ATP to run, and the end product of that is waste heat, and that drifts off of you into the air, and from the air it'll slowly drift up to the atmosphere and ultimately will drift off into space, because the earth does not heat up. The energy in has to equal the energy out. Energy flows through the ecosystem and drifts back off into space.